From the police state to tectonic plates, touch, sense, and tattoo take the temperature of tyranny on Freedom Frequency 1871, coming to you live now.
This is America. We have a founding fathers that wrote a constitution that we haven't lived by in 142 years.
Were they serious when they said they planned on owning the weather by 2025?
And if you're not pissed off, there's something wrong with you right now.
Have you guys seen what's going on outside your door lately? Need I remind you?
This is America. Are y'all going to allow it to be Russia?
I think we have somebody else.
Great. And I'm sure he'll call back in. We can carry on the conversation when he calls back. Caller, I don't know your name. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dutch. It's Annie.
Hi,
Annie
how you
Gray.
doing? Thanks for calling in.
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm absolutely
I thought
fabulous.
it might help your viewers if I talked a little bit about natural versus unnatural energy sources, having a medical background. So the body has a natural electrical source. It's electrolytes and water. Just like a computer has electricity, your body has electrolytes. So anything unnatural, like those low-frequency waves, over time will actually damage and mutate your cells because it's an unnatural energy source. Like a volcano is a natural energy source. It creates lightning and outbursts of energy. But those negative energy sources will kill your cells. And there was a dinosaur back in the day, I can't remember the name of it, but it used low-frequency waves to scramble the brains of its predators. So they can do a similar thing to your brain as well as your central nervous system. So I think it's important to understand this is not some mumbo-jumbo stuff you're talking about. This is very real scientific data that talks about the harm on your own personal cells because it's an unnatural energy source. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Hey, Dutch, that reminds me of my leg with my router being underneath my computer table.
Oh, this is a great
example. You can't get those sources too close to you, Tat. You have to put them away from your body.
I actually shielded it now. It don't at me no more. But yes,
right.
I have a big pink spot on my shin now from just that, for microwave frequency bombarding my leg continuously.
And what you can do to combat that is take sublingual B12. You put it under your tongue, and it goes to work in your central nervous system and helps heal the peripheral nerves. They target your peripheral nerves, and it damages them.
And that's
the
B12,
electromagnetic
you said?
wave that you receive.
Yeah,
that was
B12. And thank you for that.
It'll help you. Take it every day.
That is good news to hear, that there is something that you can take to help repair your nerve damage. I can give you guys a great example. You mentioned that it has extreme damaging effects to natural electrical sources as opposed to unnatural. And a group of college students this past year had a petri dish of seedlings, and they set them out to germinate over the weekend. This was purely by accident. And they had a Wi-Fi router sitting right next to the petri dish. And all the seeds got deformed. They came out just completely destroyed. But they grew a little bit, but they were completely fried. And the other petri dishes, those other petri dishes did not have a problem. And so, it was the radio frequency that was causing a huge, huge problem for the genetic development of the plant.
And just as interesting is that music, certain forms of vibration in music, can help things grow better. They've done lots of studies on that. You can actually see patterns in viscous material showing patterns forming from good energy waves.
Yes,
So
there's a
this is
great
a
video on YouTube. If you go on YouTube and just type in, I think it's called cymatics. I may be wrong on that. You could also type in
No, that's
speaker,
exactly it.
speaker salt, and you'll see a speaker that people have stretched out. I think it's fabric. It may be a more rigid material, but they sprinkle salt across the flat surface and then turn the speaker on to different tones. As they turn the tones up, different fractal-like shapes appear like a kaleidoscope above the speaker. In other words, the speaker itself is producing, the sound itself is producing a fractal-like shape. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And so when you play music to a plant, they say you play classical music to a plant and the plant enjoys it. Well, we're talking high frequency and low frequency bombarding the plant from a natural source, a bow and a string.
Yeah, and if you play classical music to water and freeze it in a beautiful crystal, if you play evil, demonic music to the crystal, all brittly and all goofy looking. And we got break here in just a few minutes, Dutch.
Okay. Well, thanks, Dutch, and good luck.
What happened, everybody?
Oh, no problem. Guys, I had it on mute. We will be delving into radio frequency much deeper. We'll do whole broadcast going into the effects on the body, the effects on the mind. We'll get into it deep. I'm so glad that she touched on this because this is something that we got censored on, that people first said that it was impossible, that radio frequency. They said this all the way back to the 1920s. Ionizing radiation can't cause problems for the human body. Then they come to find out it'll cook. Okay? So we're talking about things that for a long time have been resisted by the establishment. And, RF, radio frequency, just one of many. Okay? It all boils back to one thing, though. It really does. And that would be the corporation, again, that allows these different things to exist the way that they do. There's ways to shield and protect and stop, let's say, radio frequency pollution, but it's expensive. It's who's going to pay for it? Well,
so it's not a tinfoil hat?
If you put a tinfoil hat on, that's going to amplify the frequency. It's so funny that the conspiracy theorists would be tinfoil hatters because that's going to amplify any incoming or outgoing frequency. Just like aluminum is usually the component that makes up an antenna on a stereo. Think of a cheap boom box with its little telescoping antenna. That antenna is aluminum, guys.
So they were tricking us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It might even be why they are supposedly putting heavy metals into the atmosphere, which plays in with the quote-unquote chemtrails, which aren't chemtrails. It's either intentional or unintentional cloud seeding. Even if it was... Oh, we've got two callers. And I think we've got Julio on the phone.
And we got 3 minutes.
And we got 3 minutes left. Julio, are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here, Dutch. I was just waiting to see you guys. We're going to come back from break.
Okay. Well, I was telling everybody real quick before we go to break just about your history and like what you did for us in the community so far. And you deserve a public commendation for all the travel and the time spent away in the cheap motels. I appreciate everything that you've done for us so far, bro. And I'm hoping that in the future that you get to do much more.
I appreciate those kind words, Dutch, and someone who was a fan of your work prior to becoming friends. That means a lot. And living in cheap hotels is fine with me as long as it's a bed, And it's all about getting the information. And what you said earlier about it's just so powerful to get the Director of National Weather Service on the record. It's so much that we can talk about geoengineering and weather modification to each other in the community and blow the whistle and so forth. But I think it's much more powerful to get someone like a director at the National Weather Service on the record talk about weather modification.
Mm-hmm.
Or go to a weather modification conference and have them tell you directly what it is that they're doing and using the proper terminology, and to be able then in turn to go back to the community or go back to people who are skeptical and say, hey, this isn't some conspiracy theory. This is actually a real plan. This is actually a real thing that they're doing.
Oh, this is a great thing that happened for Julio, guys. He went to the Weather Modification Conference and saw NOAA, National Weather Service, and West Texas Weather Modification get up and brag about their results for 2012. Then he went to a conference and asked the National Weather Service director about current cloud seeding activities, to which they said there was no government involvement and that they didn't know of any current examples that they could give, and that it's proprietary information that's not provided to them and they don't take it into their forecasts. And really, in reality, there's a form that must be filled out and submitted to the National Weather Service before any weather modification activities take place. Now, Julio's standing there asking them, and you should see the look on their face. They're squirming, they're looking back and forth, they're looking down at his credentials. Why? That's the question.
Judge, I want to correct you really fast. I was actually.
We're going to go to break here real quick, Julio. We'll be back in a second. You can carry on with what happened and let us know.
Sounds good.
Thanks. All right, we're going to break, guys. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the final segment of Freedom Frequency 1871. And again, tonight's discussion has just been fabulous. We got to finally just get out some of the stuff that's been happening to us. And here on FPRN, let me just give a quick shout out before we get back to Julio on the call here, that FPRN has given me a chance to branch off of YouTube, as well as several other people that are running shows. There's several great shows on FPRN that I'd like to recommend. I've been on one of them already. That was Silence's Compliance with Anthony Antonello. You also should check out the other shows, Cop Block Radio, GGB Report, and of course the show that comes after us, which is Lies Wide Open. And Chrissy is going to be carrying us over into the next show, which is just, this is great that people are branching out and doing this on their own. And that's what, again, Julio's doing on his own. And he can give the story much better about what happened at the National Weather Service than I can. And we got two other callers on the phone after Julio, too. So, Julio, you want to tell us again, before the break, we were just talking about the National Weather Service director and how they denied knowledge. You can tell the story better than I can.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. Yeah, we got to give credit where credit's due for the guys over at FPRN Radio. I mean, when I'm on hold, just listening to those commercials, I wouldn't even call them commercials, just the sarcasm going on, the Obamacare one, the stronger gun laws. I know that they play the Second City commercial. I mean, tip of the cap to FPRN, and what a great job they're doing. So my salute to those guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they really have provided a platform, and that's why they're being censored, FPRN, overall. I mean, with all the different shows that are going on there, they're meeting that resistance, which is, they don't want a platform being given to us, guys. I mean, it's just that simple. No matter who you are, this should matter to you. And Julio,
right,
hello?
Oh, go ahead, Dutch.
Oh, okay. I was just making sure you're still there. Julio, you've done a lot of work in the radio field so far. You've done your own shows. You've had me on as a guest before, where we've discussed weather modification. For those of you who don't know, we are in the process, Julio and I, are in the process of getting together another documentary on weather modification. But this one's going to be solely focused on weather mod. We're going to go down that road and turn up what we can over the next several months and try to form another great little documentary on the subject. And I know Julio has been, well, documenting certain things, like the cloud seeding. Julio, you care to tell the audience about some of the stuff that you found recently about the cloud seeding?
Sure thing. Well, first I wanted to correct you before you went to break. You talked about National Weather Service and stuff. I went to a symposium where the director of National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center, the director of Storm Prediction Center were at before I went to the Weather Mod conference. And I thought it was a blessing in disguise to ask the director of National Weather Service about Weather Mod and cloud seeding, get him to lie, and then go to a conference a week later to get the guys at that Weather Modification Association meeting to admit all that stuff. But there's so much stuff on cloud seeding. I remember finding on my birthday a couple of years ago a plethora of documents from the state of Kansas, literally showing in a 1 week newsletter from the spring to the end of the summer their reports on their cloud seeding operations. And in those documents, they admit that, in fact, what they were doing was causing a drought. Back in 2012, they admitted that they were suppressing hail or enhancing rain. I've done some research in Colorado where in a bill they admit that if you're going to conduct cloud seeding operations or weather modification operations, you have to inform the general public 24 hours in advance, whether it's in a newspaper. I mean, it could just be the littlest thing as, a half of a page ad, in small print even, to say, hey, we're cloud seeding tomorrow between X amount of time to X amount of time. That's all they have to do. And you could file an affidavit to find out if they did warn you in advance about about cloud seeding. Man, what else? I mean, there's just a whole bunch of stuff, and I really hope that you and I, Dutch, can keep working on the subject and actually go to these people that are doing weather modification, geoengineering, who are advocating this, like a David Keith, and really get them on the record about the subject, because at the end of the day, we have to give our consent to this, right? I mean, it affects us all. When you mess with the weather, it not only affects your particular area, but it affects your neighbors, your neighboring states or your neighboring cities.
That's right.
It affects us all.
That's right. And when the National Weather Service director stands there in front of you and tells you that they do not factor in cloud seeding into their forecasting, this might explain a little bit of why the forecasting has become so inaccurate over the last several years. People think that with the refining of scientific data and more data available that we have become more accurate. Well, most people are saying the weatherman hasn't got a clue about what's going on. And then, of course, they capitalize on the extreme environmental catastrophes that are beginning to happen that are also a result of man-made interference. Julio, we've got a lot of work ahead of us in getting the information out. You've done so much so far that it's just phenomenal. I hope we get to do more in the future.
So, I hope so, too. It's important. It really is important. But one of the main reasons I called in tonight is because I've been covering since Tuesday a trial here in Chicago that has huge ramifications, not only in Chicago, but for protests and political advocates throughout the country. And it's been known as the NATO 3 trial. It's the first of its kind here in the state of Illinois in terms of state terrorism charges on 3 individuals. It's usually terrorism charges are conducted by the federal government. In this instance, it's being conducted by Cook County, which has Chicago. It's one of the largest counties in all of America. It has large ramifications. These 3 men, Brian Church, Jared Chase, and Brett Bennerly, are all facing a conspiracy to commit terrorism. If found guilty, I believe they face at least up to 40 years in jail. They've already spent a year and a half or more in jail on $1.5 million bail, all because they were allegedly going to use Molotov cocktails and use them on throw them at police officers. Supposedly they were going to use them at the Obama headquarters and allegedly at 4 Chicago Police Department locations. So I've been covering that all week, and it's a huge trial. Huge trial.
Well, that could have huge ramifications, especially with, we've got the NDAA, and nationally, of course, we've got all the terrorism laws. But this is something most people I don't think look into, which is the state laws that are being developed for terrorism. You know that some states, you can get charged with a weapon of mass destruction if you've got a sawed-off shotgun. For real. That's no joke.
Right. Well, here, in this instance, these one of the individuals, Brian Church, who was 20 years old at the time of the arrest back in May of 2012. It was actually May 16th of 2012. He had with him, all legal, by the way, a couple of knives. He had a slingshot and a bow and arrow, all purchased legally. Not really sure why he would bring that with him from Florida to Chicago, but nonetheless, they were all legal, and he wasn't allegedly going to use that in any crime. Now, here's the real big story. I'll try to say this as quick as possible. I know you guys are short on time. 2 undercover Chicago police officers were assigned back in February of 2012 a special 90-day special assignment. It was dubbed a public safety assignment in Chicago. And so these 2 undercover officers, one goes by the name of Nadia Chico. She had the nickname of Gloves. She admits she was one of the undercover officers, and during this trial, we've been noticing some of the sad tactics pulled off by the Chicago Police Department. It's been kind of embarrassing, I think, to Chicago police. Another black eye to them. They infiltrated basically Occupy Chicago. They infiltrated supposed, quote, anarchist groups at concerts, at punk rock shows, at cafes, at peaceful protest, at, just walking down the street. They were at record stores. They were literally doing surveillance on people. It came out in court testimony that they ran license plates of every person that attended a punk rock show back on March 16th of 2012. And their reasoning was that's what they do. They run people's plates.
Hey, guys, I ain't trying to be rude, but we got 2 more callers, and we got 15 minutes left. So I'm just letting.
Wow. Well, time flies. Julio, this is a phenomenal story. Guys, if you don't know what's going on, that is something that needs to be researched. This is why there needs to be more researchers on YouTube. This is why people need to start caring. We're talking about, punk rock shows. Punk rock. Right? The last bastion of rebellion. Okay? They're going to be surveilling those places, of course. And, Julio, bringing awareness to this is something that falls on the shoulders of all of us. And I appreciate all your work, bro. I want you to call in next week, and I want to have you on as a full 2-hour guest. We got a lot to talk about, bro. So let's get to the next caller.
Follow me on Twitter for everything that's going on in the trial at JN Reports. I'll cover it to the end, and I'm going to do a podcast on this on Sunday. I'll be up on YouTube on Monday. So keep kicking ass, guys. FPRN, keep kicking ass, and take care.
Hey, thanks, Julio. And I'll favorite up all your stuff. You guys can check my Facebook and YouTube pages for anything that
Thanks, Julio.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. All right. Hey, man, that's awesome to hear from Julio every time. Guys, he always has great information, and I hope that you guys do, too, eventually. That you all become your own Julio. You don't have to go travel, but you can do it from your house. You can all do the investigation. So we got another caller on the line. I think.